Good afternoon, everybody. Here we are at week 5. It's nice to know that you're almost done with the course, and I can't wait until one day when you walk across that graduation stage. It's going to be exciting. So here we go, week 5. I wanted to talk briefly and share a little bit of a PowerPoint with you for just a couple minutes on the book Raw, because it talks about how we acknowledge some of the wrong that has been done. How do we right those wrongs? And I've seen most of you grappling with these complex topics in your papers, but you're coming up with strategies. And I see that you're individuals with power and influence. You're in those positions, and you're going to be able to, if you're not already, taking those strategies to these places that you can influence in the workplace. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about cultural intelligence in the church, but this is also relatable entirely to cultural intelligence in the workforce. I'll see you with the PowerPoint in a minute. So you're going to be spending a lot of time on CQ for a Changing Church in the Books of Many Colors this week. I just wanted to share with you briefly that there's a biblical call in this book to build and participate in multi-ethnic communities. I don't personally think it's only biblical. I think that people of all faiths have a call to build and participate in multi-ethnic communities, but we certainly do as Christians. Businesses see the need to be culturally intelligent, and your understanding, I can see it in your papers, about why we need diversity from business perspective as competitive advantage, the most qualified people in the seats. The church needs to be culturally competent as well. And for one very important reason is that we're more effectively communicating God's truth if we're culturally competent. We're not continually, intentionally or unintentionally, I'm sure it's all subconscious with biases and assumptions, marginalizing individuals. And so people feel like they are included and they belong. There's 3 parts to this book, really. The first part is really going to be understanding culture, chapters 1, 2, and 3 in Raw. And part 2 is about constructing some type of a working cultural paradigm. And that's in chapters 4, 5, and 6. Once you get into the last ones of 7, 8, 9, and 10, you're going to be looking at some real life models and best practices for cultural intelligence. And in my opinion, can be brought into the workplace just as effectively. The component I'd like to talk about just for a minute is in chapter 2, we're going to understanding our history. That's what we're really going to be investigating or reading. It develops a backdrop for our conversations. If we don't understand the history of what's happened, we can't hardly remember or acknowledge what has happened, marginalizing populations of people, whether they were disabled, whether they were senior citizens or young people, LGBT community. So we have to understand, first of all, our American history. Once we understand it, we have the power to remember it and acknowledge it. And when we do that, it allows individuals to see that we are acknowledging wherever we've accidentally, unintentionally marginalized or have had some biases or assumptions towards. Acknowledging has a great deal of power in terms of healing, righting wrongs, as well as policy changes, inclusiveness in the workforce, etc. I mean, we have to have an equal playing field, but acknowledging it, the power of lamenting. Ra does a really good job of talking about how we lament our loss, these injustices, these systemic issues that still many preside still today, not in the same forms, but the same types of marginalization. And Christians who confronted slavery. You're going to see this in chapter 2, another side of the story, and how our country has deep roots of separation. There is kind of the whole widespread segregation story in there in Dr. King's letter. But the piece that I really take away from this, and I hope that you do too, it's not enough for us to say, just get over it. I'm sorry that you've been discriminated against. I'm sorry that something's happened to you in the course of history. Get over it, move on. It's not the same today, because that doesn't bring equality. It doesn't bring intentionality. It doesn't bring acknowledgement, lamenting the loss. It doesn't bring the power to create the change, to get through the injustices that we have and create systems that are just. I hope you have just an amazing time reading this book. I think it's really powerful, and I hope you take this with you for many years to come.